record it. And this PowerPoint is about physical development and how we structure early childhood classrooms to support young children's physical development. And I don't love those little transition things that I just saw come in there, so bear with me on that, and we'll pretend like we don't see those little twinkles in our words. But physical activity during early childhood, if you remember physical development of the brain and blooming and pruning, physical activity supports that structure development in the brain. It supports that blooming and pruning as we actively explore the world around us. It also helps us refine our perceptual abilities to develop our hand-eye coordination and our sense of ourselves in space. It helps us to develop healthy nerve networks throughout our body. It helps make our bones stronger, and that's setting us up for a lifetime of stronger bones there. It helps us to develop proficiency of motor abilities. Both our large motor and our fine motor skills really are, uh, we have to practice. Practice is essential. And so this is an area of development where practice makes improvement. It really does. And if we don't use or develop a fine motor or large motor skill, we never really acquire that ability. And the example I'm thinking in my head is handwriting right now. So about a very small percentage, just a couple of percent of children, by the time they reach first grade, they haven't demonstrated a clear preference for the left or right hand. And I'm just giving this as an example. And so those children who are ambidextrous start to lag behind their peers in writing because their peers are getting more and more focused practice with just one hand and using that writing instrument. And those kids that are switching back and forth aren't getting that sustained interest. So I'm trying to give you as an example here of how practice improves our large and small motor skills. It improves our overall health and fitness, reduces stress, and enhances our positive feelings about ourselves. So some of the general principles about motor development. One, in general, large motor development precedes small motor development. In general, we have a developmental direction of motor development that is proximal-distal, uh, that goes from the center out, and that is cephalocaudal, which goes from our top to our bottom. That means the proximal distal from the center out helps us to understand why large motor skills typically come before small motor skills. There are individual differences in our growth rates and in our development of motor skills from child to child that is based upon both their genetic, biological components, as well as their opportunities to practice. And our cultural and familial surroundings can have an impact on our opportunities to practice, which then gives us an impact on our motor performance. Um, so an example of that from infancy is that if you ask mothers in Jamaica what age children should be able to walk on their own, and they'll say 9 or 10 months, which is earlier than mothers in North America expect infants to walk. And if you look at observations, infants in Jamaica really do walk a month or two earlier on average than children in America. Now, some children in America walk earlier than some children in Jamaica, of course. But that's because the mothers, because they expect that, do a lot more massaging and working with their leg muscles and working out their walking, and they really do walk earlier. So you can see that cultural practice has an impact there on how we develop motor skills. Um, Maturation, that idea that we just grow, is a key component and required for motor skills. So without that biological maturation, practice won't really impact the development. So we need both that biological piece and that experiential piece. So fundamental skills, motor skills, are the large motor skills that form the basis of all sports and games that have an inherent developmental sequence, and there's a considerable variation in where children begin and where they end, where it looks like mature. And these are the fundamental large motor skills that we acquire during the preschool years. Each of these have a sequence of development that you can review in your text, or you could go back to your child development text and see those sequences. Between 3 and 7, we increase our development of locomotor skills, our ability to move from place to place, our non-locomotor skills, those large motor skills that don't involve movement, and our manipulative skills, which are more the fine motor abilities to purposefully and intentionally place and move objects. We increase in our perceptual motor skills, our balance, our awareness of space, our figure ground perception, temporal awareness, and our body and directional awareness. Our fine motor skills and the rate at which we acquire them is associated by is predicted by, or predicted by is not the right word, is facilitated or influenced by our physical maturity, as well as the instruction and practice that we receive. Fine motor skills require us to coordinate our sensory and our motor skills in increasingly complex ways. And it's important that adults support these without uh, pressure or giving children the idea that they are not getting this correct, or that there is that they're not developing it at the rate the adult expects them to, so that they're not feeling stressed about that. We facilitate small motor skills by giving opportunities to intentionally and purposefully play with small objects. So things like stringing beads uh, of different sizes, and um, peg boards where we put pegs into things, counting bears and other counting manipulatives, Legos where we're putting those pieces together. Those kinds of small objects that we purposefully and intentionally have to manipulate and place together. Also, scissors and glue. So those opportunities to use both hands together to accomplish a goal. When we have children who have special needs, we have to think about any safety issues that are there, focus on what the child is accomplishing, modify the way that we're instructing to take advantage of that child, really every child's strengths. And remember that we're going to treat them respectfully. We're going to encourage them to keep trying and to do what they are comfortable with, and allow opportunities for them to repeat uh, and have repetition in those activities, and to have appropriate expectations for based on the DAP of that child for what that activity and outcome would look like. Now, all children benefit from repetition in especially small motor, but all motor skill development. All right, for that health, safety, and nutrition piece, the recommendation is that all young children have at least 60 minutes of physical activity a day. Young children need large motor, boisterous, active play to support not only their physical development, but also their emotional and cognitive development. So this includes movement indoors during a center time. Uh, it also absolutely includes movement outdoors, uh, games that are played that are social games that require our um, movement of our whole bodies, and give us opportunities to increase our endurance and strength and speed and balance. And this also includes opportunities for elementary school age children to take that brain break, that we benefit, instead of sitting still for an hour focused on our math, we benefit in being able to get up and move around. And that helps us to process and solidify that information. Some of the kind of health topics, and look at that little slow crawl, it's like a little movie thing going on there. uh, Safety and first aid, nutrition, family health, consumer health, growth, development, substance use and abuse, personal health, emotional and mental health, disease and prevention and control. It's important. These can be included as aspects of the overall program in developmentally appropriate ways. So if there was a theme about going to the doctor, for example, it could include information about personal health. If there was a theme about grocery stores, it can include information about nutrition and family health. So these can become some of the um, facts and terms that are incorporated into that theme. One particular special case that we want to all be sure that we're modeling for young children is the importance of correctly hand washing. Many children don't know how to wash their hands thoroughly, and so they benefit from direct instruction and from modeling of washing both sides of those hands, rubbing those hands together, using that friction as a part of the washing process. Adults and children should wash their hands when they arrive in the class in the morning, before and after snacks and meals. If they blow their nose, if they use the toilet, if they pick up the gerbil or the snake, anytime that they're doing something that's obviously dirty, that's a good time to wash our hands. Uh, when we're making this video right now in November, during a pandemic, and so it's clearly a time that we're thinking about spreading diseases, and being a good model of hand washing is always been an important part of the early childhood day. Hand washing is important because it reduces those disease, reduces school absences, increases the number of children who feel well and ready to learn. It's also important to get our families involved in health education. Many families don't necessarily have all the information they need to provide a healthy home environment to support the development of young children. Uh, so it's important that we include the families in that conversation, and that they are receiving that adequate information, uh, coordinating the information that is in the home and the classroom through newsletters and so on. That can be very effective. As we're teaching fine and gross motor skills, we provide opportunities to practice those motor skills and materials that support them. So our centers in our classrooms do have those fine motor manipulatives, those stringing beads, those puzzles, uh, the tinker toys, all of those materials that support them, and we give opportunities to freely explore and spend some time and repetition. They don't just come out once. They are available over many opportunities to improve our ability to use them. So there's this regular schedule that gives us enough time. We demonstrate in our centers how to use those materials. We can model that. We can make suggestions. We can use behavior reflections to comment on how children are using those materials and to support their use. We can use guided practice where we interact with the material and the child, and we're both being a model and a support, and we're scaffolding that interaction by stepping back our support as the child becomes increasingly competent. We encourage their use. We give them support if they become frustrated. Uh, we help them to solve problems by also scaffolding with our comments and our questions. It's important that we're always close at hand in maintaining safety, and that's especially true when we have the woodworking tools out, we're hammering nails, or sawing with our little saws, uh, that we are in close supervision of what's going on there. For perceptual motor skills, think about day-to-day activities that require the synchronization of our visual, our hearing, and our motor skills. Give opportunities there to challenge and guide and practice. So um, think of, for example, arranging on a rainy day an indoor obstacle course. We use appropriate languages for body parts and give specific directions. Move your foot to the right, put this above put your hand above the rail as you're climbing up. For young children, provide materials that are surrounded by space so that they can see them. So they are, for example, we talk about a literacy or print rich environment. So there's words at their level where they can see them, but there are also pictures and other objects. I feel like young children sometimes really have a physical need where they like getting into small spaces, where they like getting into to rocket ships that are made out of boxes, or quiet quiet areas that have a pillow underneath the shelf, or those kind of areas that sometimes we think of as timeout areas where there's a more quiet removed. We can also use things like building with PVC pipes to develop that sense of space and surrounding them. Think of the children who build the forts with sheets and things over chairs. As we're teaching health, nutrition, and safety, there should be opportunities for fitness in our regular daily schedule. We're demonstrating hand washing, appropriate food, safe food handling practices. Uh, we're teaching health and safety routines, preparing to include health topics and involving the entire family.